we will be going through step number 3 of setting up your income and expense planning tool, which is inputting your financial data. Jumping right into it, let's go to the Template Setup tab by clicking the button on the intro screen. We can see here step 3 is laid out and there's a short description provided. Really, what this step entails is inserting your income and expense data, then assigning each transaction to one of the categories that you created in step number 1. As it mentions in the description, we need to go to the Expense Income Input tab. Navigate there by clicking on the icon or click the actual tab below. I'll click on the icon. For the layout of the tab, we have our instructions listed on the top with our transaction input area below. The input interface has columns for the date of your transaction, room for a description of it, and then the actual transaction amount. On the right-hand side, we can see this area of boxes that are shaded. Those are actually drop-down boxes that include all of your different budget categories that you created in step number 1. If you do not see your categories in this drop-down box, make sure to go back to the Income Expense Categories tab, the bottom of the income portion, and select Active to make sure all these categories are refreshed through the entire model. Now, as we look at this main area, it's going to include all of your current and historical transactions. You're able to input data going all the way back to 2012 if you have historicals that you want to put into this tool, but then you can go all the way up to 2032, so it has a pretty long life that you can use it. Okay, so to start populating this tab, you need to select the month and year you're inputting data for. This basically tells the model what the most recent month of actual data is. I'm inputting all my data for January 2022, so I'd select January in 2022. Let's go to the box up here. We select this dropdown, we'd select January, and then the bottom one, we would go and select 2022. As you can see, they're already set to those values, but again, that's where you'll be able to navigate it. It should be set equal to the most recent month that you've input data for. Inputting data is a straightforward process. Simply type in the date, description, and transaction amount in the correct cells, then assign it to a category. So one of my January expenses occurred on the 4th of January, and it was at Costco. I spent $96.78 that day. So again, let's go here. Let's type in the 4th of the month. Let's go over to descriptions. Let's label it Costco, and then from there, we can go to the actual transaction amount, which was $96.78. Okay, from there, I would categorize that as a food expense. So I would come to this drop-down and click food. My first transaction is in place. Another January expense I had was actually on the 6th. I went to another food store. I went to Whole Foods this time, so I'm going to type in the date. I'm going to type in Whole Foods. And then I'm going to go over to the transaction amount section, and I'm going to type in what I spent, which was $132.54. From there, we'll go to the actual categorization, and again, label that as food. Let's move to a paycheck situation. I received 2 paychecks in the month of January. Both of them are for $2,100 from Finite Financial. So we'll go to the first one, and that was on the 7th of January. So I'll type in 7th of January. We'll go Finite Financial Payroll, and then from there we'll type in the $2,100, and again, we're coding that to salary post taxes and deductions. The other salary that I actually received was later in the month on the 21st. So we'll go 1/24/2022. Again, it's going to be the same item. It's going to be $2,100. And I'm also going to code this to salary post taxes and deductions. An important point to note here is that all income and expenses should be expressed as positive values. we'll see the food expenses. Technically, that's money moving out of your account, but for the model, have them all as positive values, and then obviously for income, you're adding income. Now, the only situation in which you would put a negative number is if you're getting a credit on an expense. This can only happen for expenses. So take, for instance, if on the 15th of the month, I had a Target refund that was, a total of $50, well, I would then code that to one of the categories. So for this purposes, I will just code it to food. Maybe I bought something there, and maybe I returned it and they gave me back $50. That is the only reason you should have a negative value in this input form. You do need to watch out when you're taking some of the values just to make sure that they're not negative. Now, let's input the rest of our January expenses. Okay, now that we've finished inputting our January 2022 expenses, let's pretend that another month has elapsed and now we need to input our February 2022 expenses. I'll simply navigate up to the left-hand corner of the screen and I will change this January to February instead. From there, please populate the rest of this with your February 2022 expenses. Okay, now we have all of our expenses from February also input into the model as well. Again, you'll likely have more than this. This is only for the purposes of an example. Now, I want to go through a couple different scenarios here that you can run into as you're inputting data. Now, say you're inputting several months at the same time, due to the fact that you'd forgotten to put it in for the last couple of months. If I'm inputting data for October 2021 through February 2022, so 5 months, I would select February and 2022 since that is the most recent month. If the most recent month I've input for is February 2022, but I want to go back and input my data from 2018, you'd leave the drop downs on February and 2022 since that is the most recent month I've input data for. Now, as we can see right here, you can certainly go through and manually input each transaction, or what I personally do on a monthly basis is export all my transactions to a CSV file from my credit card company website or bank website and paste the data into each section. When you paste the data in there, make sure that you use the paste values function so that the format remains consistent in the tool and there should be no formulas. After you paste a chunk of data in there, all you need to do is assign each transaction to a category. Something to watch out for from credit card websites and bank data exports is that some institutions' transactions are shown as negative. Before pasting them in, make sure you multiply all of them by a -1 so that all the values are positive once again, unless you have a credit to your account. But again, every website is a little bit different. Every bank is different. So for the purposes of this model, you just got to make sure that it is a positive number. Now, while this process may seem a little bit cumbersome, it normally takes me around 10 minutes a month to update this, and then I'm set to go. In my opinion, it's well worth it. The last step is to input your beginning of the month cash balance in row 10 based on the first month you begin inputting data for in the year. So in our example, the first month of the year I'm inputting data for is January. So I would put the amount I have in my bank account as of the beginning of January. So again, we'll go to this cell right here and we'll type in $6,235 because that's how much I had in my account at the beginning of the year. You only need to input this once a year, so next month I do not need to touch it. If I bought this tool in March, and March is the first month I'm inputting data for, I would put the amount of money I had in my bank account as of the beginning of March. With that, we conclude step number 3. Please select the next video for step number 4. I hope this was helpful. If so, leave a like, and we'll see you in the next video.